Hey everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of Quality Talks podcast. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'm buzzing. I'm well excited for this.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for ages, and I'm so happy that we're going to be doing it together. So I'm Stu Day,
And I'm Chris Henderson.
and we are your hosts for Quality Talks podcasts. So welcome everyone. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening to this on on podcast audio, thank you firstly for joining us and taking the time to listen. What is the Quality Talks podcast? Well, it's going to be everything really. So we're going to be talking about all things quality, software testing, tech, leadership, coaching, you name it. We're probably going to have an episode about it at some point. And we're going to have guests on. We're going to have features throughout. We may even give away some merch. You may see some of this lovely merch that we're wearing here and here. If we sound rubbish, we're going to look good doing it. So that's all I'll say. Even up here, look at that. Gonna go all in or go home. That's what I say. So for this first episode, me and Chris have been in the industry for quite a few years now. Our paths, we met a few years ago, and actually what we found was our careers have been similar but different. One of the big similarities is we're both college dropouts, but we don't talk too much about that really. So what we're going to do today is we're really just going to talk and have a chat about our careers, how we are here today talking to you guys on this podcast. What are we passionate about within the industry? What are some of the challenges we face throughout? Any funny stories? We're literally just going to chat it out and see where things go. Do we know what we're doing? No, we don't know what we're doing. We absolutely don't know what we're doing. But you're here, you're listening to us, so hopefully we're going to do something right. So let's just start then. Let's go way back. Let's go way back to where our careers started. And Chris, in terms of your career, we mentioned that we both dropped out of college at an early age. I think you're a bit younger than me, but again, we won't talk about that. Where did it all start for you?
Well, you mentioned there that we were both college dropouts, but it's not something that we tend to talk about. But maybe that's probably the starting point, I feel, because that was something that obviously led to the pathway I am today, right? So as many people across the world go through school, you're put into a position, obviously leaving school, where you are expected to know what you want to do with the rest of your life. And that is obviously incredibly daunting ask to have at that age. And for me, I just really wasn't sure, and I think I kind of followed the crowd a little bit, and I ended up applying for college and went through college and found that it wasn't really for me. I didn't really enjoy that classroom-based environment similar to my school journey, and it's not particularly how I felt I learned best. And that ultimately led to me decision to drop out of college. And I changed the path that I wanted to go down, and I went through an engineering apprenticeship. And I just found a much better connection with that way of learning, that more hands-on, just getting stuck right in, and after doing my engineering apprenticeship, that I applied for a role at Nissan Motor Manufacturing in the UK, and based up in Sunderland, up north. And
Are you from up north? Are you from up north?
Yeah, you might have guessed it. Okay. I'm not going to go into the Newcastle Sunderland divide. Which one am I at? Maybe we'll leave that for another episode, right?
Yeah.
We might gain some viewers, we might lose some if I go into that conversation. But so I spent a just under 10 years with Nissan, and I had multiple different roles, but where I finished my career there was in the quality space in what they call inspection. and this is part of the production line. But it was something I was always passionate about quality in general. I've always had a keen eye for detail. I've always been a bit of a perfectionist, and I've always had a real interest in like how things are put together and assembled. That goes right back to when I was like 6-year-old, sitting in my nana and granddad's kitchen. My granddad used to have a little drawer. It used to have nuts, bolts, tape, and I used to make things and tell me nana and granddad all about them, and then pull them apart, put them away in the drawer for a next day and build another creation. And I think that's where like my interest in engineering and building things and being able to produce things come from. And I got to nearly 10 years within the motor manufacturing industry, and I just knew I wanted to change. But I'd always had a keen interest in technology, and there was a day within Nissan where there was some of the engineers. They were on the production line at the end. There's a light tunnel. You might have seen it on some adverts, and cars go through the light tunnel and it shows up all the imperfections. And they were building a software program to basically analyze defects on a vehicle as it passes, and it would learn and it would identify whether or not something was a scratch or whether it was just somebody's trousers as they were walking past to the canteen on the on the lunch, and it would know the difference. And I thought it was really cool, so I sparked a conversation with the engineering team who were there and was asking some questions. And to be honest, it all went in one ear and out the other. I didn't really understand anything that he said. I just knew it was really cool and interesting. And he mentioned something about Python, and I thought, Python, to me, that's a snake, or I know Monty Python. We all know that one.
Yeah.
So I went back home and I went on to Google and started typing in Python and coding, and that was kind of like the triggering point to start my journey into my self-development, learning how to program and wanting to pursue a career within tech. So in my own time, I found a course called on Codecademy, and I started to learn fundamentals of Python. And then I seen a great opportunity for a test analyst come up at a company called Tombola Bingo up in Sunderland, and one of
Were you testing the balls?
No, so I wasn't a bingo caller. I wasn't a bingo caller, but it was a test analyst role. And it was a great opportunity. I read the job description and I thought, you know what, I might not be in this industry, but I've got a lot of what I feel is transferable skills that I can bring from quality within manufacturing across to this technology role. But it's just about how I present that to the people interviewing us and how I can sell those transferable skills. And thankfully, I was able to put the right message across in the interview, explain to them how I had those transferable skills that were applicable to a quality role within tech. And one of my now good friends, Adam Mitchell, who was my senior at the time at Tombola, he took that chance with us, and he seen that it could work out, and he gave us a chance to step into the technology space, and that kind of led to me path and ultimately ended up where I am today. So in short, that's the transition into tech. But I don't know if you want to give a little bit of a bit of background yourself on your transition into technology and what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we've spoken about your journey, like from manufacturing into tech a few times, and I find it fascinating, and I don't think there's enough of it. I mean, we gave a talk a couple of years ago, didn't we, at the National Software Testing Conference, where you described that in a lot more detail. And I think that the engagement we got from that was really interesting because, you know, there's not enough overlap. There's in terms of career change, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's kind of like, how do I get into tech? Well, here's a way you can get into tech, right? You took a chance, and somebody took a chance on you, and that I think we need to have that more. I mean, my journey into tech wasn't as sort of structured or pronounced as yours. I did a year at college, and like you, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm expected to go to college, so I'm going to college. I spent most of my time in the pub, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, I was
Nothing's
at college.
changed, right?
I was at college. Okay. Hopefully, my dad's not watching this. By the way, sorry, Dad, if you are. But one of the subjects I took at college was computer programming, and that wasn't because I had an interest in it. It was because I felt like that's probably a career that I could ultimately become something in. It was, tech, is a lot of people were going down that road. But the thing was, similar to what you were saying about being in a classroom, I don't learn great in classrooms, right? I don't learn by being taught. I learn by doing and interacting, and it's a completely different dynamic. And if you put an exam in front of me, well, God knows what will happen. But so I did it. I did a year, and I really struggled, if I'm honest, going from high school into college, and sort of you were given more trust and more empowerment in college. And that was the worst thing you could do. I was 16, 17 years old. It's like, you're not actually going to make me come to class? What's that about? So I ended up leaving after a year, and I did I went into a youth training scheme. So it was called the Prospect Scheme. And it was 4 days a week in an office or in a job, and then 1 day a week in a college environment. And that first role for me was as a systems analyst with a company called Whitbread. And that gave me exposure to tech. It gave me exposure to technology and systems, and just working within an office environment actually was really, really beneficial, getting that experience, which you don't get when you're in college, right? You don't get that from the classroom. Unfortunately, that was supposed to be 2 years. Unfortunately, after a year, they had to let me and another person that was doing the scheme go. And in the end, I ended up doing some factory work and just trying to earn some money. Until I noticed that there was a job in the local newspaper. Now, anybody that's listening to this podcast or watching this, whoever went and searched for jobs in the newspaper, kudos to you, right? That means you're old enough to remember, which is great. But I would go through the newspaper and I would circle jobs. Or this one sounds interesting. This one sounds interesting. And funnily enough, they always put the salary in the adverts as well. Maybe we could learn some stuff around that nowadays. So I was going through the local newspaper, and I saw this role for a UAT analyst, and I was like, oh, and it starts talking about testing software and this, that, and the other in the job advert, and it was local to me as well, which is even better. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to apply. Didn't have a clue what the job was about. Didn't really know what UAT analyst was or anything. And back then, Google wasn't really a thing, so I couldn't really Google, to find out what a UAT analyst really was either. Not effectively anyway. So anyway, applied for the role. I got a phone call on the house phone because mobiles were not so hip and happening back then either. I'm really showing my age.
Is that the old phones as well, where you stuck
was.
your finger in and you dragged it around?
Yeah. It took you 5 minutes to dial a number. Yep. And then by the end, you had RSI in your finger. So I get a phone call, inviting me to an interview. And I'm thinking, great, I got an interview for a job I actually have no clue about what it's actually doing. So look, I'm not going to lie, right? I went into the interview. I blagged the interview, right? And again, if anybody's watching this or listening to this podcast that interviewed me there or worked with me at this company, apologies, but it all worked out okay in the end. So I got the job, and I loved it. We were working on an AS400 mainframe, right? So green screen, black screen, green text, no PCs. It was like, and we were publishing airline data, airline schedules, and obviously testing the software that did all that. And I literally learned on the job. I didn't, and the level of training I got was great. The software engineering manager, she was awesome. She'd been in the industry for a long time, and yeah, I just really got a bug for testing. Coming into a role, I didn't actually know what the hell I was going to be doing. To very, very quickly falling in love with this type of work and learning more about it and stuff like that. I mean, I stayed at that company for I think more than 10 years in the end, and I worked through, became a test manager there, and yeah, I mean, I often think about if I hadn't looked in that newspaper at that time, where would I be today? Because I wasn't hunting for a role. I didn't even know a career in testing existed. Right? I knew obviously programming and software development existed, but not testing. Nobody ever taught us that. Nobody ever told us about that at school. So it really was just a chance, chance happening, if you like, that I've ended up in the industry I've been in for the last 25 years, which is quite considerate. It's quite cool considering I'm only 30.
Come on.
So yeah, I think our careers have, I think in a way we've kind of fallen into it a little bit by chance, haven't we? You took a risk, I took a risk, and we've both had, or we're both having successful careers, and I think it's something to take away there for people that whether you're in the tech industry or not, or you're in the tech industry, you're looking to get out, or you want to get into the tech, and sometimes you just have to take a chance. But also, this is a little message to those people that are recruiting, and sometimes you need to take a chance on people as well. If somebody didn't take a chance on Chris, he wouldn't be where he is today, right? And Dunelm wouldn't have the sort of person that Chris is. If somebody didn't take a chance on me, well, maybe they'd be in a better place. I don't know, but I definitely wouldn't have had a career of 25 years in this industry, right? So sometimes I think you don't always have to look at, have you got 5 years experience? Have you got this? Have you got that? Sometimes you just need to take a chance on a person and they will pay it back tenfold. So just, I mean, again, just thinking about that, right? Chris, I was just saying, how many years have you been in the tech industry now?
So it's been about 6, I would say.
6 years, yeah. And what would you say?
6 years, yeah, since we transitioned.
Yeah. So, and what would you say you kind of love the most about the industry that you're working in?
Ooh, so there's a few points to me at the minute. So one is tech in general is such a fast changing industry. So I think as our consumers want things literally yesterday, it gives businesses that push to constantly innovate and bring something out new, to try and have a competitive edge over their direct competitors. And in doing that, obviously, it pushes tech teams to constantly be analysing ways of working and constantly innovating new products. And you get to work on really exciting things, and we deliver at such a pace that you're never kind of stuck with one project for a long duration of time, not from my experience in any way. When we compare it to, say, working on a model of car within the motor manufacturing industry, that could be going for like 6 years, whereas within tech, any kind of software product would typically be produced in a lot shorter time. So that's one of them. But also, as I've found myself progressing within this industry and stepping into leadership roles, it's the ability to have an influence on others' personal journeys and their career development. So that's a new exciting aspect that I've ventured into in like the last 3.5 years, and I think that's one of the main drivers on a day-to-day basis that I'm so passionate about, and it's an opportunity that's obviously arose like most like fairly recently,
Yeah. I think we're aligned on the leadership side of things and people and stuff like that. I think one of the things that stands out to me in this industry, and I think is, and you alluded to it, right? It never stands still. And I think one of the things I've noticed, especially from a software testing, and now we're kind of talking more around quality engineering and moving towards that that way of doing things. My kind of my observation. There you go. Right. So we say right. So my observation on our industry is we can get very stuck in our ways. And you even see it now, like on LinkedIn, like the conversations that you see and the discussions are still very. We were having these same conversations and debates years ago: automation versus manual testing versus this versus that, etc., etc. And sometimes I don't feel as though we adapt quick enough within our own industry, and that's something that I've really personally I've tried to take ownership of in my own sort of career, and look at how, not just from my own personal point of view and my own what I do and how I do it, but also trying to help others to think differently and try different things rather than just doing it because that's the way we've always done it. So I think from my perspective, especially now more so being in leadership roles, trying to be that thought leader, trying to be that catalyst to drive new ways of doing things, new thinking, new thoughts, and not just for the sake of it, but there's opportunity there, right? That we can just get better constantly, and that's what I really love about our industry is like that. There's so much more we can do, and there's so much more we can learn, and there's so much more we can improve. That it's almost like an open book. It's like write your own story, really, because you just got to want to go and get it, and I think that kind of leads me on to what pivotal moments in our careers that have kind of been those game changing moments, or where we've kind of taken that a different approach, or just try something new. For me, a few years ago, I was working at the company where I was there for 10 years, and I was quite happy there. And then something changed. I'm not going to go into the details of what changed, but something changed. Leadership changed. And it just didn't become very nice. It became very toxic. It became very, an unpleasant place to work for a bit. And I could have stuck it out. I could have, just carried on doing my day job and just, put up with it, but it didn't feel right, and I felt like I could learn a lot more by actually leaving that company and going somewhere else. Now, I took a bit of a risk in terms of what my next step was, because I ended up taking on a test analyst role. So I was a test manager in this place at the time, and a good friend of mine, Imran, if you're listening, love you, man, for this. And if you're not listening, why not? But Imran, he was he worked at the same company as me, and he went to EasyJet, and he contacted me and said, "Stu, we've got a test analyst role. You know, if you're interested." And I was like, test analyst, I don't know whether I really want to go backwards. You know, now bearing in mind, I hadn't worked in any other company other than this one company, and I've been there for 10 years. So it was an opportunity for me to get out and, you know, go to a different company, stay within the airline industry as well, which I really loved. But obviously there was a risk there that I had to step back. But one of the things that I was really intrigued about by doing that was trying to rediscover the passion that I'd had in the early days when I got into software testing, because I started to lose that. So I took that risk, and I got the job at EasyJet, and that for me was such a pivotal moment, because what it did, it exposed me to so many different things. It exposed me to agile ways of working. I didn't even know what agile really was until I went to EasyJet. It exposed me to different types of testing, different software, different tech stacks, different ways of working as a whole, different challenges. There was a lot of challenges, but it enabled me to grow as a person. And the longer I was there, I was then able to move into a more leadership type role. But that came through time, and that came through being able to just take that chance and take that step into the unknown, and, you know, kind of go back to my roots a little bit. You know, I think I'd done 5 years as a test manager at that point. So I'd been away from physically testing software for a while. But the time that I spent at EasyJet really revived me, revived my passion, revived my career, I would say. I don't think I would have stayed in this industry necessarily. But for me, that was a really pivotal moment in my career as to which direction I could have gone. And actually, when I was at EasyJet, one of the biggest lessons I learned was when I was there. And this came from a guy called James Easton. I know James won't be listening to this, but James, I love you for this anyway. He was our configuration manager at the time. And we used to do monthly releases, and, you know, the build up to those releases it's quite long winded, and getting the regression testing done and this, that, and the other. There was a lot of managing of stuff. And I was really like in that mindset of like, I can't let anything fail, because if it fails, it's on me. All right. So, you know, fighting fires and, you know, putting your superhero pants on and your cape and going in and sorting stuff out when it wasn't quite going right. But one of the things that I found was that I was getting really, really burnt out with it, trying to do that constantly. And James Easton turned around to me one day and he said, "Stu," or Stubby as he used to call me, he said, "Sometimes, mate, you just need to step back and let things break." And I thought, how? What? No, all right. We're in testing. We're in software testing. We can't let things break. If we let things break, it's on us. You know, but I took time out and thought about it. And if you don't sometimes just let things happen, let things break, if you just keep putting sticky plasters on things, the root cause will never get solved. Right? And you'll just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And everybody on the outside world looking in will think everything's fine. The people on the in the day to day will be the ones that are burning out because of the what they're having to do to keep the lights on, to keep things looking good, to keep things going, and that's something that has stuck with me since that day. And it's something that I'll always say to people: sometimes you just have to let things break. You have to expose something, let something get exposed, for it to get better. Right? You can't always fix things. So that's a couple of little pivotal moments in my career, I think, just there. So, Chris, from your perspective, then, is there any sort of pivotal moments in your career that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've already alluded to it when I talked about me transition from one career to the next and into tech. But that was the main pivotal moment that really stands out to me. The reason being is obviously changing career is a massive step for anybody to take, and there is a lot of self-doubt that comes with that. But the ability to believe in yourself while going for a new opportunity, especially transferring into a new industry, I feel like it was such a powerful opportunity and time for me to know more about myself, like as an individual, and go through the challenges that offered, but also give me a chance to obviously put myself in front of others and say how I had these transferable skills that I could bring across industries. So they may have been looking for something in particular on paper, but how my skills that I built up in a different industry were actually I could bring them across, and then we could. It was basically what they were looking for. So I think that opportunity, but also the fact that people can believe in you at that point as well. It's a very scary time to be vulnerable and put yourself in that position to be judged, like we are in kind of any interview process, but especially when you are maybe going in as the lesser experienced candidate. But the fact that there was people who were interviewing me who were open-minded enough to hear my story and hear what I had to bring. And I mean, it's only the first episode, and I'm probably going to do a few shout-outs, but those people in particular were Adam Mitchell, Sean Dixon, and Neil Trodden, and they interviewed me at Tombola Bingo when I stepped into tech. So, I mean, I thank those people for believing in us and giving us that opportunity. And I think there is a massive learning opportunity for recruiters out there and other companies as well to take that similar sort of approach with your interview process. Don't rule someone out because on paper they just don't fit that description. Hear about that person's story. They may bring skills that you didn't even realize you were looking for. So for me, that was a real pivotal part of my career journey, and without that opportunity and people believing in us, then I wouldn't be where I am today. I was thinking there as well, just as I was talking, that there is opportunities where you can put yourself in front of people and they can listen to your story and believe in you and stuff. But then there is also things that cross over between industries and like pet peeves. So one of the pet peeves of mine is how when people basically say that they've always done it that way. It grates on us if I'm being honest. The fact that when people can be very narrow-minded and just think that because they've done it a certain way, it always works. But I can never get past that, and I always want to explore new ways and experience like new challenges and stuff. But when people say like they've just done it that way, and they're not open to exploring new ways, and they don't really understand the purpose behind it all as well. Kind of great songs. But I don't know if you have had any pet peeves that kind of stand out to you through your time in the industry.
Yeah, that's definitely one. To be fair, it's definitely one. I think just picking up on that point actually very quickly. I think the point you made there is like when they're not open and willing to try and change. That's a big peeve for me in terms of, not so much the we've always done it this way, but it's the more of the but we're not willing to change. We're not willing to try something different. Why do I need to change something when it's not broken? That kind of thinking. But as we know, there's always ways you can just get better at things, as I mentioned earlier as well. I think one of the my probably a little pet hate of mine is, but it always makes me laugh regardless, is it's always the go-to of why wasn't that tested? Right? If something goes wrong and we get an issue in production, first thing is why wasn't that tested? Or we've clearly got a testing problem. Now, that used to really, really wind me up, really used to annoy me, and I used to get really frustrated with it. Now I kind of take it with a pinch of salt and just laugh it off a little bit. Because do you know what? Actually, there is an issue there, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it's a testing issue, but there's definitely a quality issue. Now, if we talk about quality as a holistic factor as we do, if something goes wrong into production, then yes, there's definitely a quality issue at some point, in that process. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a testing thing. But it's always the go-to thing. It's like, and I remember, funny story. I remember years ago. I think it was when I was at EasyJet actually, and that was brought up. Well, why didn't you test that? One of the developers said, well, why didn't you test that, to find that bug? And I was like, well, why did you code the bug in the first place? We're this is an absolutely pointless conversation right now, right? So that's definitely one of my little pet hates, I think, over the years. But now I kind of just laugh it off a little bit more and kind of, to your point, actually keep more of an open mind to have a broader conversation around it and try and help people think differently, rather than get frustrated by it or anything like that. So yeah, I guess that's just how
you mentioned there about helping obviously people to think differently. Is there anything like across the course of your career that you could offer as some tips to help people to think of the bigger picture and more broadly, and to overcome the anxieties that maybe come with change? Because I think that's what tends to hold people back, is the anxieties that creep in. They've always done it that way, and that's what's comfortable to them. But they don't necessarily know the benefit that change can bring. So from your experience, is anything that kind of stands out, or an approach that you would take to helping people overcome some of those challenges?
It's a really good question. I think I'll come at it with two slightly different hats on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I think as an individual who has suffered with anxiety, at all levels for many years, doing something new, doing something different, with a level of uncertainty, can be quite scary. Can throw those emotions all over the place, regardless of whether it's work related or personal life related or anything like that. And it's really important to have an environment around you that's supportive. So one of the big sort of pieces of advice I would always give to people is don't try and be too siloed in what you're doing. Don't try and do things with somebody else. If you're looking to try a new tool out, or you're trying to look at a different way of implementing a new way of testing, or you're trying to just experiment with something, don't necessarily do it on your own. Do it with somebody, right? Because that way you've got a support there. You've got somebody's there going through that process with you, learning with you. You can bounce some ideas around. It's not all on your shoulders. And I find doing that, and having done that over time, I've done both. I've got to figure this stuff out. I've got to, figure out a new way of doing this or whatever. And it's all on me. It gets quite overwhelming. Pairing up with somebody or a group of people and going, how can we solve X? Or wouldn't it be cool if Y? Let's go and have a look at it as a group, right? The other part to that is from a leadership perspective. When you're in a position where you are leading people, it can, again, sometimes feel like it's all on you. And it absolutely isn't. You've got other people around you in similar positions, similar roles, that you can pull on and bring into conversation. But what's really important from a leadership perspective is to create that environment where people do feel safe to try new things, experiment, and you don't have that fear of blame or something going wrong that is, fingers going to be pointed at you, or you heaven forbid, the risk of you losing your job, right? That is an extreme example, but some people have that fear. If I try this and I do something wrong, then could I potentially lose my job? So from a leadership perspective, if you're in a position of leadership, then it's really important that you're able to create that environment where people feel supported. They know that by you're giving them permission, and I'll do this, permission, empowering them, right, to try new things, to fail, if you like, and for them to learn in that type of environment. Now, I said at the beginning of this episode, when we were talking about college, classroom isn't the place for me to learn. The place for me to learn is doing, failing, learning, doing again, that kind of thing, in the real world. And there's a lot of people out there that are like that, but they have to have that environment to be able to give them the confidence to do that. Now, creating a psychologically safe environment is difficult. It's not easy. There's loads of components to it. We'll do a whole episode on that as well. I'm not going to go into that right now, but it's really important from a leadership perspective. So just from the two different sides of the coin there, I think there's different ways, different advice I would give people. How about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking that there when you were talking, I think there were some really good points, and I was thinking, like, when you mentioned about like being a leader, I think because sometimes we can have, and I'm the same as you, like there will be times when the anxiety creeps in and you do think it's all on you, but then there is also people out there who embrace that opportunity and they will be very comfortable taking the lead. But what I would say to those people is see the bigger picture as well, because although you may be comfortable going in and suggesting what needs to change, to get the team on board, you have to give them the opportunity, and you don't want to take that opportunity for growth and to participate and share their ideas and their experience. You don't want to take that away from them, because that's a great learning opportunity for them to build themselves both personally and professionally and grow in confidence. And it's normally these type of opportunities that create that stepping stone into leadership roles before they actually get there. That's how they build experience, by people given that kind of the opportunity to collaborate in a safe space. So, like, if there is any leaders out there who are listening, next time you're faced with a situation where you have to potentially bring change about within a team or your organization, although you may have an idea and you want to see it through, just bring it to the team and offer the opportunity for other people to step up, because what we want to do is create platforms where we can build future leaders and build many leaders around us as well. We're going to be far more productive. And to Stu's point before, it's very hard to create psychologically safe environments. But by doing things like this is how we build confidence and build rapport with each other, and start the path of building psychologically safe environments where we can put our ideas forward and not be afraid of failing and taking them learnings, So I think there's some good points I think that was covered there. But from my experience, that's just one of the main kind of suggestions, and something I've learned across my time in leadership as well, to be more mindful of, giving others that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we've just touched on the surface there around a few different topics that we will cover in future episodes in a lot more detail, and no doubt we'll probably have some guests on that will be willing to share their experiences and their ideas as well. Just let's just stay on the topic of advice for a second. If you had the opportunity right now, you had a time machine, Chris, it could be a DeLorean, it could be I'm really struggling with other hot tub, it could be a phone booth, I don't know, right?
I was going to say Bernard's watch, if anybody watched it in the 90s, but it's not a time machine, it just stops time, so maybe that's irrelevant.
It just stops time. Yeah. But say you had a time machine, you can create whatever time machine you like, mm-hmm. right? And you could go back and speak to young Chris. Young Chris, not that you're old, by the way, but younger Chris, back there at the plant in Nissan, in Sunderland. Not that you're from Sunderland. What advice would this Chris give to younger Chris now, and just generally about, I guess, over all those years of what you've learned since moving into the tech industry, and just taking the chances you've taken, what advice would you give? What one piece of advice?
I think the one bit of advice, and this goes back before my time at Nissan as well, is we, as human beings, we tend to compare ourselves to other people a lot. And I think this is something that's very prevalent in the age of social media. But for me, it's about not comparing yourself to other people, and understanding that we're all on a journey. And the beauty is that it's different. Every single person's journey is different. And that's how we create the best teams, because we have diversity in our experiences and the skill sets that we bring. And to just embrace your own journey. Don't compare yourself to other people. Just keep believing in yourself. Stay true to your values. Do what excites you, and just follow your own path. Sometimes you don't need to know what the next 6 to 10 years is going to be like. As that 16-year-old, like, leaving school, you're forced in that situation where you kind of feel like you have to know what your whole life looks like, but you don't. You just have to know what your next step is. And if you can take your next step, then you keep moving forward, because just thinking about it there, I think of like a stream with lily pads, and there's so many different lily pads that you could step on to get to the other side. Doesn't matter which one you step on, but that's like the path of life, right? There's going to be a new opportunity, a new lily pad that comes along. You can jump onto that one if you want, or you can go to the one to your left, to your right, the one straight ahead, and it's just about navigating your path. But you don't have to know what the third lily pad is or the third opportunity down the line. You just have to know what your next step is, So, and just believing in that and trusting the process. And if things don't go your way and don't pan out the way you want, that's fine as well. Like, embrace failure. You can always take a step back and take a different course of action. So for me, that kind of mentality is something I try to embrace on a daily basis. It's something that's kind of helped me with the transition going from obviously motor manufacturing at Nissan in Sunderland and taking the jump into tech. So whether you're a 16-year-old leaving school, whether you're a college or university leaver, or whether you've done 20 odd years in an industry and you just want to change, like, don't be frightened, embrace it. We're all on a journey. And again, like, I'll say the same message to those companies out there and those recruiters. Just remember that there is something powerful in everybody having a different journey and a different experience, and give people the opportunity to be heard and tell their story, because there could be something that you didn't even realize you were looking for. What about yourself? I know I went a bit deep with that one.
No, I mean, do you know, I love that. I think, yeah, do you know, and the thing is now, I mean, it was different when we were at school, right? Even more so when I was at school. We had newspapers, but social media now it's in your face all the time, unless obviously you're not on social media, and it's so difficult not to compare yourself to other people, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be Twitter or X as it's now known, Instagram, whatever, it's, and often that's not even real life. It's just a flash of something that somebody wants to show you because it's something that's good that's happened. And you're absolutely right. It's like every single person is unique. Every single person's journey will be unique. Their experience will be unique, right? And this is what I say about when you're doing public speaking. Just, if people get concerned about public speaking, and I always say to them, it's like, if you're speaking from your experience, don't worry, because you can never be wrong, because you've experienced it. It's what what you've learned, what you've known, right? So don't worry about it. And you just mentioned about the lily pads. So just very quickly, completely off topic here, right? Completely off topic. So I've got one of these arcade machines, with loads of retro games on. Set it up the other day and sat there playing Frogger, right? Which is a frog that jumps around on lily pads. I mean, what are the chances? So yeah, completely off topic. But anyway, I guess from my side, what advice would I give little Stu? I mean, I'm not exactly much bigger now, am I, really, compared to what I was many years ago?
You said it, mate.
I mean, I'm glad that we're not standing up on these podcasts, but I think from my side, if you look back, and I've mentioned there that I've suffered with bad anxiety on and off since I was about 17, 18. And I remember when I got my first proper job, my full-time job that I talked about earlier, I took a chance on applying for that role, not really knowing what it was, whether I'd enjoy it, but I just needed. I was kind of in that situation where I needed a job, and it sounded interesting, so I took a chance. But what I didn't talk about was mentally how scared I was, and how panicked I was, when I actually got the interview, and then B, got the role, because I thought, I'm going to get found out. I'm going to, somebody's going to kick me out after a day because I have no idea what I'm doing. And, and I wouldn't even say it was imposter syndrome, because genuinely I didn't know what I was doing. But that's actually okay. It's okay to not know things, right? We go every single day is an opportunity to learn something new, right? To your point, putting one foot in front of the other. Every single day you wake up, there's an opportunity to learn something new, and it doesn't matter if you don't know everything about something. That's great, right? Actually, seek it and see it as an opportunity. And I think sometimes, we go into these situations, whereby we think we need to have all the answers, especially as you develop more into a leadership position, right? And we've touched on it a little bit, but you're not ever going to have all the answers, and you never should be required to have all the answers. And when you can start convincing yourself of that, and leveraging other people around you, and actually being very vulnerable, and I guess that's the advice I would give to myself, is be vulnerable. It opens up so much more opportunity to learn and develop. And we've worked together for the last few years, Chris, and often we'll sit and have conversations, and I'll be like, I have no idea. Let's figure this out, right? Even though I was in a position of leadership, and it's kind of like, way back, I would never admit to that. It would be like, no, I'm not going to tell people I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna fake it till I make it, kind of thing, So I think for me, it's that piece of advice would very much be, don't be afraid to be vulnerable and admit that you don't know something, because I'm sure there's a lot of people around you that are probably feeling the same, but also that could help you. And as a collective, the chances are you'll have the answers. And that's the great thing about anybody that's listening to this or watching this, that is either a coach or has been coached. Coaching is very much about helping people solve their own problems, right? Believing that people have the ability and have the knowledge, and it's not telling them what to do, and it's just unearthing it, right? And I just think that for me is, if I knew that back then, I would have had a lot less sleepless nights. I would have probably not been so panicky, and about the new role, and any role that I kind of started. Since when I went to EasyJet, I felt the same way. I was a bit like, I don't know. Now I'm much more chilled about it. I'm much more open about it and transparent, and it helps massively.
I think that's a really good point. It's definitely something I can relate to as well. And I was just thinking there that there's something, just to add to what you were saying. There's something that I found incredibly beneficial that's helped me, and it might help loads of people out there. It might help that one person. So I'll share it. But what I tend to do is I will look at the next day, and I will get a diary. I'll write down everything I know about tomorrow. And at the end of that day, the next day, I'll have an opportunity to self-reflect, and I'll write down everything additionally that I now know, that I found out during that day. And it helps us to come to terms with knowing that I don't have to know everything up front, but the next day, to your point, gives you opportunity to learn something new. And every single time I do that exercise, what I start with, there'll be a few points of what I know is going to happen in the next day. And by the end of that day, when I do the self-reflection exercise, there's so much I can write down that I've been able to seize in that day as an opportunity to learn something new and be challenged in a different way. And it helps you go into the next day not feeling as anxious, because you don't have to know everything, but there's so much more that's going to come, and you're going to, like to me point before, it's one step forward. And so that kind of like self-reflection exercise always has been something that helps me, especially when you have moments of feeling overwhelmed and you kind of get stuck in your own head and you think, oh, here's the internal saboteur kicking back in and thinking I have to know everything. But if that, I'd encourage everybody to give it a go and reach out, tell us if it helped you or not, and or if anybody can recommend other exercises to listeners to help with that kind of scenario as well. Bring your ideas forward and tell what works well for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think journaling is a really great way of excuse me, of just getting your thoughts out. My son does that actually a lot. Something that he learned at a young age, because he's always been very routine based, and journaling is something that's really helped him over the years. When he gets anxious and that, he'll write down 3 good things for the day, so that he's focused on the positives that come out of the day, and he'll do that before bed. And it's a really great way just to kind of get him into that positive mindset, rather than focusing on, the things that went wrong, or the things that, maybe didn't go quite as well as you'd hoped, and getting into that negative frame of mind. So yeah, definitely, if anybody's got any other sort of techniques to help them with that sort of thing, let us know. So we're pretty much coming to the end of the first episode. We've covered a lot there, but we've only touched the surface of our experience and a number of different topics. And over the course of the series, we're going to be delving into a lot of these different topics in a lot more detail. But if there's any specific topics that anybody is really interested in us talking about, covering, then drop a comment, and or hit us up on LinkedIn or wherever, and we'll endeavour to kind of cover it at some point. I can't believe we're at the end of the episode, Chris. It's like we've been waiting so long to do this, and it's like the first one's over.
I know.
How are you feeling?
And still buzzing and amazing. Like we've got this opportunity, and to what we said before, like to bring this opportunity to other people, want to listen in, but also for people to come forward and help support the platform as well. If there's something that you want to hear us talk about, but you'd also like to maybe share your thoughts on it as well, like reach out and we can see if we can get you on as a guest, and we'll have, similar to the conversation me and Stu had today, just very relaxed, open conversation, gives the ability to explore the way each of we think about a particular topic, and maybe unearth some of the misconceptions and challenges around some of the things that we might come across within our industry, but also share some really helpful tips along the way that hopefully people can take away and find some benefit from as well. And hopefully in time we can have more laughs along the journey. Like I say, mate, if you do know me and Stu personally, you know that we are very relaxed, and we like to have a good giggle, and things are always better if you're having a laugh along the way. So yeah, hopefully you can join in on that with us as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, if as we Chris mentioned, and as we spoke about at the start, we will be getting guests on throughout the series. guests will be getting their own lovely merched t-shirts or hats or whatever they like. So if you are lucky enough to end up being a guest, you'll get one of these as well. I mean, you're not getting one of them because that's expensive, but you can have one of these because they're not as expensive. And we haven't got any sponsors yet, you see. So again, if anybody's interested in sponsoring us moving forward, a really shameful plug there. But thank you everybody for joining us. As Chris mentioned, we're absolutely buzzing to get this thing underway, and we hope that we're doing it justice and you enjoy the episode. And yeah, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your family, tell the stranger in the street. I don't care. Just tell anybody that this podcast is up, running, and out there to everybody and anybody that wants to listen or watch. So thank you, everyone. It's been great fun. Look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Quality Talks podcast. Bye for now.